right, everybody. I am really excited because our guest today is Mr. Stephen Kneece. And y'all, he is one of the most generous humans on God's green earth. And on top of that, Stephen's also an amazing AAC SLP and faculty member and former chair. And you have done all of these things, and you've raised a beautiful family.
We're trying. We're trying. Yeah.
So thank you. But thank you for coming on. And you've been on, is this our third one together?
I think so.
Okay, well, take us from the top about your walk. Tell everybody what made you want to be an SLP and then focus in AAC because that's a journey.
It's certainly a meandering walk for sure. After I got out of college, so I was in the classical guitar program at USC, and I did media art. So I was doing mainly audio art, and that was kind of recording studios and things like that. So that's what I was thinking about doing, but I wasn't really sure exactly what my path was at all at that point. And I had an SLP family friend that was like, "Hey, Stephen, you would be a good fit for this." It's like, and then you could use music in therapy, especially if you're going to go with peds. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't even really know what an SLP was at that point in time. I only have heard of that, but hadn't really considered it as a career. So then I started diving into it. I'm really glad that is the path that I ended up taking. So anyway, so went to grad school, and I was like, yeah, this is a really good fit. So I went to Aiken County Public Schools and immediately was trying to think, all right, how do I incorporate music? How do I, play music and do this thing? So I was doing that, and then I had some clients to kind of go into the AAC side. Had some clients that were non-speaking, and I wasn't really sure what to do. I was like, I know that they have more to say. I know that they have more to communicate about, but I don't really know how to do it. So then I started asking people, of course, looking at PD, looking at just SLPs that were within the school district that I was in Aiken County, and said, hey, what do y'all think? And they're like, we're not really sure either. So it was kind of more of a let's figure this out. And then I got a lot of support from the school district say, hey, let's send you down to ATIA, so the national or really international conference for assistive technology. And then I was like, oh my gosh, there are so many different options out there. There's so much to learn, which was overwhelming at first because like, oh, so many different companies, so many different apps, so many different things. And then I got involved with assistive technology and AAC in general for the school districts, kind of tying back the music and the AAC. So then I started pushing into classrooms, and I made songs and things like that. So we would play music, focusing on AAC, focusing on core vocabulary. So that was great. And then some of the teachers were like, hey, it's great that you come in like once a month to do this thing, but I would like to use those songs when you're not here. And I created a YouTube channel. It's called Speech and Language Songs, and recorded a bunch of things, created a bunch of videos. And that was the idea. It's like, okay, now I'll send you this link so then you can utilize it when in between. And then other people started using them from
Me
across the
too.
country. So, okay,
Yes.
that's good.
Okay, I like how you just casually left off like half your other accolades. I'm going to toot your horn. He is also past president of SCISHA, the South Carolina Speech Hearing Association. He teaches adjunct at a couple different universities across South Carolina for the AAC class. Was department chair over at Columbia College for their undergrad SLP program, and now you represent Forbes, which Lord Almighty, I had not heard about until I saw your LinkedIn update. And then
Yeah,
I was like,
what is
this is
this?
cool.
Yeah, sorry I glossed over some of those other
No,
uh,
that's okay.
years in my. It's just hard to remember all the different meandering things. And the thing is, like, I really am glad that I did all of those different things. Like, I learned so much from being the president of SCISHA and being VP, and we need the continuous advocacy for our profession. So, and I learned that and just gained an appreciation of it. And then I had the opportunity to join Forbes, and I mean, no, it's just such a good fit for me. Now I get to do this type of thing, talk about it, but also just consult with people. And I learned so much from all of these SLPs. So consulting, being able to develop relationships and just help. It feels good just to help. And it's like every day it's just new and there's different people to provide that help to. And that's what I that's the reason why I continue doing this, because it's really nice to impart that knowledge that I get to gain from all these other SLPs that are super smart and super passionate about what they do, and I get to steal all of their ideas, and then share them with all these other people that want to learn more about AAC and just want to help their own clients, and they're just not really sure what to do exactly. They're in that same spot I was, I don't know, 13 years ago now, so it's been a long time. But so
I'm older than you. Be careful.
right, right. I feel like I'm getting old. But so in that same spot, wanting to help, but just not knowing how to, and just like being so much in the right frame of mind in the right place, but just not knowing what to do. That's a really fun part of this, and so I find that I've really liked every single thing that I've done, but this is the best fit that I found, and I needed all of those other things first,
Yes.
to learn all these different things, and now it's like, okay, I'm exactly where I need to be.
So, what I love the most about your journey is that it is steeped in lived experiences of interprofessional practice and intra-professional practice, like from the education perspective. Like you acknowledge that you worked with other SLPs, you acknowledge that you learn from OTs and special educators and like the caregivers and the tiny human themselves, because that's something. Again, I am older than you. So I only had to take an AAC class in undergrad, and somehow that counted towards my grad credit, like because it was like an elective in undergrad, but I took it, I don't, whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember our high tech version was making a shirt with icons that you could pull on and off the shirt
Okay.
for like, that's woo, 20
Of
years
the
ago.
highest of the tech.
We have progressed in 20 years
Yeah.
and now carry around, basically a computer in our pockets. But it's it's the journey. And Dr. Carol Page, who I know she's retired, but like she was, so folks, if you don't know who Carol was the director of the assistive technology office for all of South Carolina. And Carol gave me the best advice: start where you want to end. And I had no clue. So I just sat there very patiently when she mentored me and was like, start where you want to end, Michelle. And I was like, okay, I want to end with them telling me what they want. And she goes, okay, well, then you need to offer like robust communication opportunities so that the tiny human child, whomever you're working with, can get there. And I was a queen of all things Velcro and lamination, and like I never was formally trained in the exchanging of the pictures, but this was the approach that I was taught because, again, evolution and practice for 20 years. So give ourselves grace for those of us that have been around and are learning different things. But it was extrapolating the information from our different professional colleagues that gives rise to the evolution in our skill set. But something else that was not taught in class and something that's not taught now is the process of getting a device trialed and funded. Folks, you may learn it in the state that you're in, but when you go to a different state, they may have you do an eval at the beginning instead of the end, or they may have mandatory minimum 3-month trial and all of these things. And the rules have changed. But how do you recommend colleagues learn the trial process and the steps? And where do we start, hon?
That's a good question, because every state is different. So I'm helping with a lot of different states right now. So each of these companies, including Forbes AAC, of course, we have representatives that are strewn about the country that can help you with any of those. And honestly, I think the best way to handle that is develop a relationship with those individuals. I mean, obviously, you can I don't know if you can share my email or whatever in the show notes and things like that. But so that is something that just reach out, and you can look on our website as well as any of the AAC companies' websites and find your person, your rep. And honestly, I think that's probably the best way. Then you have this person that will help you navigate. Because
For
you could
free.
go look. for free. Actually, I had that question the other day. They were like, "How much is a consultation fee for you to come out and help?" I was like, "Oh, there's nothing." I would be glad to come out there. I was like, "That was an interesting question. I haven't, but yeah, absolutely for free." We are here to help that process because we understand that it is confusing and also frustrating sometimes when you're going through and you're like, I already did this part. Why, what are we doing? Why are there so many hoops to jump through? It's like we try to make it as seamless and easy and painless as possible, but there are regulations that we have to abide by, and there are different states, like you said, that have very specific guidelines. And if you come from one state and you're like, I'm just going to do it like I did in South Carolina, I'm going to go up to Michigan or wherever, it's like, okay, you're get ready for a denial because you did not do the things that they want, right? But so having those conversations up front, and we have so like people like me, but I'm not the funding expert. I've learned a ton, along the way. But we have a funding team as well, and all they do is the funding side of it. So they have deep knowledge about that. They can read something like, that's not quite right. We need to maybe tweak this, tweak that, and really that relationship with the people like me as well as that funding team is the best, right? So if I was an SLP, going back, to give myself advice with the funding process, develop a really good relationship with those reps and as well as the funding team. Understand your regulations within the state and really kind of go deep into that. Again, the best probably way of finding those, you can go read the Medicaid handbook and stuff like that if you want to, but I really don't know if that's really going to give you the nuanced information that you probably need to know because the funding team and again reps are seeing those trends, so they understand what actually is happening. So again, you can know the regulations, but you want to know here's what has been denied. A bunch of different times. You need to actually state it like this. You need to have the specific. There's one state that really wants a specific date range, and if you don't format it correctly, they'll say, nope, that's not okay. It's like everything else can be fantastic. Your trials, your justification, data out the
Data.
wazoo. And
Yeah.
they're like, well, you didn't have the date range in the correct format, so you're going to have to redo that. Well, okay, but we know that stuff already. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
we don't want you to have to relearn that. Go through that process, that painful process of like, okay, now I have to resubmit these things anyway. So really lean on these people. Like this is literally what we do and what we want to do is to help you through that process. So that would be something I suggest. And with that, we have a funding portal, of course, and it's like do this and then do this. So we try to make it as seamless as possible, and we're always taking feedback. So people are like, well, this is kind of confusing. It's like, okay, I've gotten 3 people that say that this part's confusing. Let's change the user interface, the UI slightly to make it more sense. Because when you get into this side of it and you do it day in, day out, you start getting this knowledge bias, and it's really hard to not have it, right? Because like, yeah, you just do that. It's pretty easy. And then, but if you're brand new to it and you're looking at it, it's like, what does that mean? What is that acronym? Just being in this deep into it, you kind of forget those things. So it's really, really helpful to have people provide feedback so then we can get better at like, okay, we're going to tweak that process because clearly this is a pattern of people not understanding what to do, so we tweak that. So we're constantly trying to improve
Implementation
on that.
science. Yes, but it's the art of implementation science. You're
that
changing by tweaks. Okay. So,
and that never stops. Like we're going to have to continue doing that because the regulations will change, all these different things will change, and we'll just have to keep improving forever, which is
yes,
cool.
what
Yeah.
we want. So, typically what I do and have done since South Carolina, like these there's a continuity in um the larger process, right? Is I start with my language eval and I'm seeing my tiny human. I've gotten my real or my Rossetti because smaller kids. God help me if I ever had to administer a self. I don't know where the hell I begin
I'm not
with
going to be able to make it through that. Yeah, me
I
neither
know.
anymore.
I'm like, woo! To every graduate student that I ever supervised doing that, you did a great job. But um, And I'm mildly embarrassed and turning pink. But I do my language eval, and then based off of my language eval, I typically start pulling in the clinic trial device, um, whether it be a bag from my car that I'm going to bring in and we're going to try it out, or something that I've put in the clinic that I'm working in and pull that out. And I've got the device, but the device has different programs on it. And so I kind of test the waters out. And y'all, I am quick. I don't wait when we have severe language delays or even moderate language delays. And for some of the kids with even mild language delays, I'll pull a device right out the gate, because to me, this is the total communication approach. I'm doing spoken language, ASL, and AAC. And after we get, a little bit of time in and I've established buy-in with my caregivers, then I'm going to start the AAC process. And again, as Stephen says, every insurance requires something different. But what I consistently see is somewhere in this journey, I have to have a specific script for AAC eval. I have to have qualitative and quantitative data for my trials. And if I engage in the interprofessional practice that we were talking about earlier, I can even get the school based or the caregivers to pull in data. So then we've got like different settings, which is always really exciting for me that we have like all of that data. This is where I get excited about data. Like, don't make me do an MLU transcript. I would die 1,000 deaths, but like this, yes. And then what I love is that I have found y'all have reports pre-made with suggested um, language. And those reports are each entity will have a variation, but it makes sure that I consider when I'm writing up my report, and am I looking at fine motor access? Am I looking at visual acuity? Am I looking at all of these things? But that honestly, prior to being mentored in an AAC report writing, I would not have known to look at. And it made me a better therapist. But after that, then behind the scenes, y'all need a letter from the physician, a script from the device from the physician, a doctor's appointment for the child, and then all of that goes to your funding team for review. And
Right.
then, are we good? Did we do all of the things? Because that's where I
So,
panic.
yeah, yeah. And that's why the funding portal is very helpful, because it can walk you through those things, and you're like, hey,
Yes.
this is still missing. I still need to get that, especially if you're new to the process. And so our funding, oh yeah, it was like if you're new to the process, you're lost at first. Which again, we can be helpful. We can walk you through each step of the way, and then you learn through that process. And maybe next time you need a little bit less help, and then and then a few iterations down the road, you're rocking and rolling all on your own. But so one thing that is very helpful, our funding team will coordinate all of that. So if you're doing basically the client information form, so that's kind of the general information regarding the client, the order form, so you're stating these are the things that I need, right? So that, which makes sense. You're just checking, okay, I need this device or with this application on it and things like that. And then yeah, and the key guard if you need that. So and then a eval report. So if you're really responsible for that side of it, and then our funding team will take care of the rest. So and we have different situations. So some SLPs are like, here's the entire thing. I got the face-to-face note from the doctor. I've already gotten the script. I have done everything. Boom, 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 and it just shows up. Boom, they upload it all together. And those are typically people that have been doing it for years and years,
Way
and they
more
know
than me.
right. And, and they have their process, and they're like, no, I want to. And then there are other scenarios where they actually have doctors that are within the same building as them. It's like, no, I'm just going to walk down the hall. The client comes into the same building, so like that those are different scenarios, and that's the minority. Most of the time, I'm working with SLPs, and they're just like, I don't have a fax machine. What, I'm supposed to be faxing the doctor? I'm not sure what to do. So, but our funding team is fantastic about that. So, oh, we don't have copies of insurance cards. We don't have the face to face. We don't have a CMN. We don't have a release of information because that's necessary too from the parent, if we're talking about peds or caregiver or something like that. So, we don't have any of that. Our funding team will reach out directly to those different parties, some being the parent, some being the doctor's office, and get that. So we use a lot of things like DocuSign, to make it super easy. You just click on it. Boop, I can sign it with my finger on my phone if I wanted to, and then I'm done. So rather than I've got to print this, have to sign it by hand, have to scan it, and then send it out, those sound like minor things, but honestly, I find those conveniences to make the process so much easier. And then we get everything a lot faster, and then we can all right. Now let's move on. Let's get this to it in the hands of insurance, and then we have to wait on that process. And a lot of times, I get the question a lot. It's like how lengthy of a process this is. Like as far as what we do on our side, our funding is very fast. Like we get those items completed, but sometimes we get hung up if we can't get the CMN from the doctor's office, and we're trying and trying and trying. We'll continue to contact. We're not going to give up, but sometimes that can lengthen the process, and that's kind of out of our hands. And then we submit to insurance, and then sometimes that can take a lengthy period of time, and that's out of our hands too. So it's really hard to answer the question of like how long does this take, because it depends on so much. We try to make it as fast as possible, but yeah, no, it is challenging. And I do get the frustrations because I'll get the calls or the emails like, Stephen, what's going on? This has been 2 months. It's like, yeah, I agree, but it's just been with insurance and they're still processing, so, and we're just limited on what we can really do. But we can keep following up, but we're just limited on what we can do there. But anyway, so that's kind of the gist of it. But you mentioned something about trial devices, and I wanted to
Yes,
kind of touch on that.
because that's where I get stuck is I am guilty as a therapist of feeling complacent with what I find comfortable. Like I'll get on like a program and I'm like, "Oh my god, I love like I went through a phase where I was like I'm really comfortable with LAMP, and then I got really comfortable with Unity Words for Life, and then I got really comfortable with Grid." But it was every time I got exposed to a new program, I'm like, "Oh no, I love this one." But how do you pick them?
that is super challenging. But it's really going through the feature matching process. So when we're talking about that, so feature matching is such a broad thing. So we're talking about what size of the device do we need? So do we need something that is pocket size, or is like no fine motor? We're not. That's not going to happen. We need something that's much larger. Okay, we need something that has a key guard on it as well. It's like so you have those aspects of feature matching, and then the access methods. Are we talking about head tracking, eye gaze, switch scanning, all of that stuff? But as far as like choosing between the different apps, it's really about the linguistic side of feature matching. Go ahead.
Can you explain switch scanning, because that to me has always I don't understand how it works.
Sure, absolutely. So let's see if I can actually pull something up real quick that may help you.
Okay, so folks, if you're listening, not now, especially if you're driving or if you're on a treadmill, because I can't do two things at once. But uh, we also have us on YouTube, so you can check this out visually on YouTube because Steven behind him has a dinosaur, a robot, and 4 devices.
Then I have some more devices on the floor too, so we got all kinds of stuff going on over here.
Nice.
Stuff everywhere. But so switch scanning, and honestly, I feel like I have done a lot more switch scanning evals more recently. I was like, so we're looking at all right, so we're looking at the fine motor skills. Like, okay, direct selection is really off the table, for this, imaginary client that I'm discussing. So, and then eye gaze may be a good fit, head tracking may be a good fit, or maybe not. So we can trial those things and see. Are we going to have accuracy? Are we going to have consistency with that access method? And if the answer is no, and also it's like maybe the answer is yes, but for a very short period of time, and then they fatigue very quickly when they're doing eye gaze. Like, okay, maybe this isn't a really good fit. So switch scanning can be fantastic because you have so many different switches that are out there, and then you can really be flexible. I really like to try to find two different access points. So two different locations on the body where they can consistently and accurately access these things, right? And so it could be a pillow switch that they're using their head, so it's a softer switch where they can use their head to touch that. It could be something where they are just abducting their leg, so their leg is going and it's on the outside of their knee, and you can tap something like that. We can have puff switches, so you're actually using your mouth to do things like that. Sip and puff switches are a thing too. So proximity switches would be another thing. There are even these glasses that you can wear, and it's a blink. So it's almost like this little laser. It's not like blinding you or anything like that. It's just detecting your eyelid movement, so you can blink, and then that is the way that you actually make a selection. There's
That's
twitch
cool.
switches. Yeah, you can stick it to your forehead, and then you're twitching it. So that movement is what activates the switch to. So many different things out there. Like something like Control Bionics has EMG switches, electromyography. And so that is like literally just sensing the electrical impulses. I'm not going to explain this well at all, but it
It looks like
detecting.
magic.
Yeah, so it's magic. No, it's, so detecting the electrical impulses of the muscle. So you're trying to make that movement, and then it senses those electrical impulses. So tilt switches too, just so many different things. Pneumatic switches, the options there are endless. And then, so if you can do two switches, that is fantastic because then it's so much more efficient, and then you have control, right? So then I can be using one switch. I'll just pretend I'm using my hand. So using one switch to toggle through the different options, and then the other one to actually make the selection, right? So
Oh,
and
cool.
that's nice because you can just take breaks. Let's say I'm going to toggle through. Okay, I want to take a break. All right, now I'm continuing to toggle through, and then I'm selecting. But if you have one switch, typically you're going to have to do automatic scanning or the hold down and then it automatically scans and then release to make the selection. A lot of different settings that you can mess around there. But typically, when you're making a selection, you have to be in, right? Cognitively, you have to be focused, no breaks because it's up. You can break, but it's going to continue to automatically scan for you. So
Yes.
that's something to kind of be concerned about too. Anyway, so if we're going switch scanning, I always try to do two switches, and then but a lot of cases like oh that's not going to be possible, so we're going to have to do one switch, and that's fine because then we still have that. And I like the idea of we have direct selection, then we have head tracking, and we have eye gaze, and we have switches, which could be one switch or two switches, and there's like none of that. Let's say none of that can work. We can still do partner assisted scanning to the point where maybe they are making a grunting noise or there's some way that they can indicate, but they can't accurately and consistently activate a switch, but they can let someone communicate to someone else that they can do that. So there's still ways of communicating that are low tech and this partner assisted scanning. So I like the idea of there's always a place to go. Right, so
Yeah.
it's like if this isn't working. Oh, let's try. Oh, we have more data now, so let's try something different and try something different. But there's always a place to go. So that's exciting to me because we just never have to be like we're giving up, right? That's never a thing, And then it's like, okay, we're at partner assisted scanning, but like going back to what Dr. Page told you, like where do you want to go? All right, so let's try activating it in this way, and with the idea that we're going to actually start activating a switch in that same way. Maybe they don't have the accuracy now, but they're going to be practicing that access method, and then eventually, oh wow, they've gotten a lot better at whatever that movement is, whatever that action is, and that's you can really lean on the PT and OT heavily to kind of help with that. I've done some of those evals more recently, and then the PT and OTs are in the room, and I'm just asking them questions, which is it's fun because they're just like, normally we're not part of the AAC eval. It's like, I want this is your time to shine. I need you. I need your like. So where's the best access method? Where do you think? And then I just step back and let them run because as soon as they feel comfortable and they're like, oh, I'm part of this team. I have some really good ideas. We're going to do this. I was like, yes, absolutely. So let us, the SLPs, work out the linguistic side of it. But like I need you to tell me what's because I still don't get all of that stuff, right? Like like we could guess, but I was like that we don't have the background knowledge like they do. So it's so
Yes.
nice to
But that's the interprofessional practice piece, but also it gets back to, do we understand the etiology that has brought them to meeting a speech therapist in the first place? Because different diagnoses, your trajectory could go down or it could go up. And when you're doing this for a child, you're looking at, insurance is probably only going to pay for this once every 3 to 5 years. And so we have to make sure that we have options and that we can grow into it, whether it be this way or that way. Ah, yes, I love that. I mean, I had Irene Ingram at Therapeutic Design in Hartsville. She was so good. She's an OT, but she was so good at teaching me how to help. We had this one little guy, and she goes, Michelle, well, didn't you think about this? And then she just moved stuff around, and I'm like, no, because I'm not an OT.
Right? We
Yeah,
don't have that background knowledge. We don't have
yeah,
what they have. We didn't go to school for that. And then just
yes,
the experiences. We've been talking about perspective a lot. So we don't have their perspective, which is hard
we need
earned
it. Team.
perspective. Exactly. We need a team. We can't be the end all be all for all of this stuff. And things just get so much better when you're working as a team. I had a meeting yesterday and we had private OT, school OT, private SLP, school SLP, special education teacher, and both parents were there. And we're just having a conversation about what is going to be the best thing for this individual. And it was just such a good conversation because I could not, and then I was there, of course, too, but I could not have come up with the solution by myself. But they couldn't come up with the solution without the little pieces of input that I had too. So all of the different, like OT, one OT said this, another OT said that, and it's like, but we came together, and it was such a nice experience because truly was collaborative, and none of us would have come up with a solution on our own, but together we definitely came up with the best solution. And so it's exactly that. So it's fun to see when that works out well like that.
So, this is a naive question, but I have never understood, when you're looking at the AAC, which part is the hardware part and which is the software part? And I know that's foolhardy, but like is all of the access methods and the actual sizes of the device the hardware?
So like, all the different pieces of it. This is all the hardware. So, and let me hit on this real quick with the switch scanning to
Yes,
make sure. But then I can just dive in from there. It's like, here are all the hardware pieces, and then I can kind of differentiate between that. So we'll start
yes.
here, and then we'll kind of dive in there. So this is our WinSlate device, so our Windows-based device that has an eye gaze module on it. So it depends on the scenario, right? If we're doing eye gaze, obviously you're going to need this eye gaze module there. So this is an Alea camera, Alea Technologies NXT. So that is the hardware, the eye gaze hardware that's on there. This is a really, really accurate one and it's very, very fast. So the technology, these pieces, this eye gaze hardware has just gotten so much better over the past 10 years. It makes sense because technology continues to move in that direction, but things have gotten so much better with that. So anyway, so you have that piece of hardware, right? And so you have the Windows-based system, that WinSlate is what it's called, that hardware too. And I just want to very quickly show you. So these are the different access methods, so you can kind of toggle between them depending on the scenario. Of course, you have eye tracking down there, which would utilize that. But the scanning, so I don't have a switch hooked up to it. So what I did is just put the settings on. If I touch the screen, this entire screen will just act as a switch. So you can just kind of see how switch scanning would look. Let's see if it works. I did that very quickly when I grabbed it. So let's see if that setting actually works. So scanning. Text communication. Yeah, so then it's doing a group item. Trademark. And then you're having the auditory feedback. Infrared toys. So we're going to click that one. And then we're clicking that one. And so it should, if I tap that, so then it should start that scanning. Close folder. There we go. Bironco Smart Puppy. Bironco Smart Puppy. So then you're going down this line. Shrieking Robot. So we're going to go to the robot. And so then you can make those selections. So then it's Slide all... to forward. Back. Help. So then that's kind of an idea of how, and there's so many different settings with that. So that was group item. So you're having the whole line. So that makes it a bit more efficient. So if I'm selecting between those different big groups and then kind of diving into it, but you can do individual ones. So it's just all linear. You can do snake, you can do column, you can do row, you can do all the settings. You can change that. The automatic side, again, that was because I'm just using one switch. I was kind of just using the screen as that switch. But if you're using two, you could kind of see how you can toggle through with one and then select with the other. And then you have the auditory scanning aspect of it. So if you have somebody, and here's an example of an eval that we're doing now with somebody that's nearby. We're doing switch scanning, visually impaired, like they cannot see the screen at all. And so what we're doing is auditory scanning for them. So visual impairment as well as fine motor difficulties, and they're non-speaking. And so this is the best solution that we came up with. They're able to access two switches, but they're going through and they're hearing the different options, and boom, I'm making the selection. That's what I want us to do. And with that auditory scanning, I always suggest doing two completely different voices. So this is the person that is my voice to tell me what I'm hearing, to kind of give me that information. And so typically, like the woman voice, there's a voice that's very different than what my own voice would sound like. And then I take the volume way down too. And then for my selection voice, I have a man's voice and I have it way louder. So then everybody around me knows, okay, that was something that Stephen's communicating rather than just having it communicate to me. Does that make sense?
Yes, but it's also like a privacy piece. Like
Yeah.
I've seen where they have like an eye gaze, and on the back of it there's like a bar on the
Yeah.
back of the
It's like a
device.
message window or a partner message window or something like that.
Yes, and so while you're formulating, or while the AAC user is formulating their sentence, it doesn't show up on the message window until the sentence is fully formulated. And that way it's like we have privacy to our thoughts.
Yeah, yes, and I'm working on this. Or I messed up. I wanted to delete that, so you don't need to see that yet. Yeah, that's
Yep.
a good
But
good setting.
it kind of reminds me of my inner monologue, my inner running narrative. I'm like,
Right.
oh, shouldn't have said that. Oh, can't take it back. But like,
Yeah,
yeah.
what was it? Those brain computer interfaces like the Neuralink as well as Synchron, like those newer, I guess Neuralink's not new anymore, but these companies that are doing those brain computer interfaces, which have been effective and a very very exciting future in the near future because it's very much happening now. But how do you kind of correct for that? It's like, how can I choose what my inner monologue is saying, and is that coming out? So it's like that may not be good. Not
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
gets to hear
No, we
everything that
don't.
I'm saying.
There's some definitely very private thoughts I would like to keep buried all down into the deep dark Michelle land, because it's unicorn and rainbows are down there until it's not, and then we go scary places.
And so I don't even know. I don't know enough about the BCS at this point to know how they kind of correct for that, or if they do, or it's just like, nope, this is it. You're gonna hear everything that they're thinking. So it's kind of an interesting aspect of that. So I'm interested in that. But anyway, I'll continue to take you down this road of the hardware. And since we're already in the infrared toys, I'll just mention that since we're already here. So we have this set of toys. It's called the Language Development Kit. So we get these funded through insurance, which is great. But they're physical toys, like you see the little dinosaur
It's a
over here,
triceratops.
Triceratops. Yeah. And then we have the robot, but you have a bunch of different options in here. So I'll kind of go back to kind of show you some of them. So we have a little zoom tube car track. So you have a whole track there. And then unicorn, and then the little smart puppy. But and one thing that's really cool is you can create your own. So let's say you go to the store and you find an infrared toy, and the infrared is very easy to know. So does it have a little remote, that goes along with it? So you can find things that are very motivating for an individual that you're working with. So they can manipulate these physical toys in the real world with their eyes, direct selection, of course, but it's really built for eye gaze to really be engaging and also practice that access method. So eye gaze and switch scanning is what I typically utilize these for. So because then they're like, oh, this is really cool. I get to manipulate things that are outside of the screen and get better at those access method. Understand like, oh, this is meaningful, this is functional, and then leverage those skills to really work on linguistic side of things. Because you might be like, oh, how is this speech? So we need to really separate those access method, the operational side of it, to the linguistic side of it. It's like, but that's not just playing around, right? That is very, very meaningful and very, very helpful, because we have to lower that cognitive load. Like if they're really struggling with the access method and we're throwing a bunch of linguistic stuff at them at the same time, it's like,
It's
no,
too much.
I'm good. Exactly. So then we can get really, really good at that. So all right, now we're lowering that cognitive load on just the access side of it. All right, so now we're going to be sprinkling in the linguistic side and start really communicating. And I'll show you like just an example. So we could be then doing that, and then we're coming back over here to a communication board that has similar size buttons that we've been working on, and that can be something that we kind of dive into from there. And within the Windows-based system, I feel like one of the weaknesses is that it's not in the Apple ecosystem, right? So you don't have as many applications available, but we've built out a ton of different page sets that can really meet the needs of so many different situations. So when you're going through that feature matching process to kind of figure out what is most appropriate for an individual's, then you have a lot of different options. And they're just showing you like a CVI page, a high contrast page there. But
Cortical
anyway,
visual memory. Yeah.
but anyway, so that's an option too. And I'll just kind of briefly go through some. I'll just grab devices from around me here.
Yeah.
Just
I'm just
yeah, go ahead.
I I'm just in awe that they can control a robot. Like I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
Bear just turned 11 yesterday. He turned 11 yesterday.
Happy birthday
But
there.
he just got, I know y'all knew him as like Baby Bear, but like he
Yeah,
just
yeah,
got
yeah.
this remote
11.
controlled toy outside that he's terrorizing the freaking cats with, which is a
Yeah.
whole nother conversation. But okay, he's not terrorizing the cats. We have a very obese cat that we inherited with the house, and she's too lazy to move. So like that's on her. But it's such a little boy thing. He wants just to play. And to even our little ones that are non-speaking, they still want to play.
Of course, right, of course.
That's just
And
beautiful.
you can see how many. To keep it in the SLP mindset, like there's so many language opportunities when you're playing with these things. So it's definitely not taking that away at all. And one thing that we talk about communication is really connection and things like that, and then the pragmatic side of things. But I was
Yes.
working with an individual. This is a few weeks ago that they actually got their device and they did the language development kit and they have all. So I was in their house and we're setting up the mounting system, all the things. So they got all the things. So it's a lot to set up initially. But he had older brother who is speaking within normal limits, and he's such a great older brother. So he plays with his younger brother all the time, but his younger brother's not really able to reciprocate that. So physically he's not able to do that. So this was the first time that he was able to reciprocate and play because we had the dinosaur, and so the dinosaur was being activated by the individual that's using eye gaze and chasing the older brother. So it was
That's
really cool to
amazing.
see them. Yeah, to see them actually being able to interact. And there's so many different games on there too. So they started playing tic tac toe together. And so the individual in the wheelchair that's using eye gaze was making selections, and there's a nice little pause button. So the older brother would pause it, and he'd be like, I'm going to go here, and then unpause it, and then eye gaze turns back on. The younger brother's able to select, and so they were able to play, and he was able to reciprocate because of those accessibility measures there. Those options that have been built over many, many years of kind of thinking through those things. So it's a really cool option to have for the right clients. But so that's our Windows-based system. It has an infrared module on it, so it's very capable of doing so many different things. And they're environmental control units, so that's typically for older clients, of course. But door openers, window openers, appliance modules, being able to connect it to a TV. There's this thing called Ability Drive too, so they can actually control their motorized wheelchair with their eyes, so they can look at different parts of the screen and they're moving their chair. So those are a bit more edge cases. Like that's not the majority of my clients or anything that are capable of doing things like that. But it's so cool when you have those abilities to add all those different features. So it's just about independence, right? So it's like, think about that. It's like I'm in my wheelchair. I can open my own door because we installed a door opener. I can do that with my eyes. I'm going into the other room. I'm turning the lights on in here because I have smart bulbs that are connected to the device. I'm turning on the TV. I'm selecting my movie. Oh, it's a little bit too loud. I can change the volume, and I'm doing that all within my wheelchair. Um, so those are really cool pieces there. And with the Windows-based system, glasses mode. So that used to be kind of a difficulty with eye gaze is wearing glasses and having
Okay.
like the reflection and not being able to pick up their pupils really well. So it has software, side of it that is improved and the hardware too to make that possible. And then sunlight mode. There's an automatic sunlight mode. We've been talking about driving the wheelchair, right? Exactly, it's kind of right there. So if you're driving your wheelchair outside, so you're using your eyes to do so, and then the automatic sunlight mode can turn on and say, hey, there's way too much light coming in now, so we're going to flip into the sunlight mode. All right, now I'm going back inside. Boom, it turns off because it detects how much light is coming into that camera. And so
That's
nobody had
so
to go
cool.
into, yeah, it's very cool. So no one had to go into the settings to change that. I can independently do that, and it doesn't require somebody else. So those some really really cool aspects of that Windows-based device. And then we have iOS-based device that has eye gaze on it. So this one's actually I find more recently fairly popular with direct selection as well. So it's a 13-inch screen, which is pretty massive, but
Yeah.
there, then we have some of those fine motor issues. We're slapping on a key guard, and then we have a little bit more space. We can kind of adjust those button margins to kind of give us a little bit more space to kind of increase our accuracy. So I'm doing a ton of those more recently. It seems like there's kind of trends and phases
Yeah.
that I kind of go through, but I see that a lot more recently because it gives them the surface area. But of course, we have that eye gaze module on there if that's necessary. It's really nice to have that large screen to be able to access that. And if
Wait,
you notice,
I have a,
there's a lot.
I have a,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I have a quick question. I
Yeah.
have currently not on my caseload, but little ones that have spinal muscular atrophy, SMA, and um, there was a little one that came up. Um, the diagnosis was not caught in time, which is terrible. So we had more damage done. But they required to be laid down on one side for their eye gaze. So it semi occluded one eye. So for the eye gaze, do you need two pupils or is one pupil okay?
No, and the Windows-based device, you can choose the different eyes. So you're like, I'm just gonna focus on this eye. I'm just gonna focus on that eye. So
Okay.
again, that Windows-based, that Aaliyah Technologies camera is fantastic because it just gives you so much flexibility. So and you can dictate, it's like, is the eye present or is the eye not present? Because then you can have an idea of like, this is what the software needs to know. So then they're not like, I'm not searching for an additional eye. We know the
Yeah.
right eye is not there. So then, boom, we're just focusing on the left eye. Yes, and I honestly I've used that a good bit, and just because you have an eye that's a little bit more inconsistent, so this right eye is moving around a lot more, but that left eye, and we're observing, we're looking at them go through the calibration and their use of it, and we're trying to. I typically just start with two eyes, and then I'm watching them. And I'm like, oh wow, so that left eye seems to be right on exactly where they're trying to look at, and so then we can try that. So a lot of times in evaluations, we are working through those, and we're like, that's not, we're not getting a lot of accuracy. Why? Let's observe, let's talk about it. Okay, I think we need to focus on that left eye. Then we do calibration. Sometimes it is so nice when it's like, boom, now we have a fantastic calibration, and then we jump into some games and like, boom, boom, boom. It's like, thank you. So this was such a cool thing to have that tweak be the thing because like I'm calibrating with two eyes and it's like this is not a good fit. Like we're not getting any consistency here. And then you can just change a setting and then you get it. You're like, okay, we have somewhere to build on, rather than
AAC
like
genius.
right, right. And so rather than thinking like, okay, I don't know where to go, now we're gonna have to mess with switch scanning, which again, like I said earlier, it's nice to have all of these different options, but it's really cool to see because I want the most efficient. Right, so like that's what I want direct selection first, right? Because then they can do that and not have to worry about the fatigue and things like that. But then we're looking at head tracking, then we're looking at eye gaze. Anyway, but yes, we do have that option to look at the different eyes. But it's very important and helpful to have that.
So I feel like as a therapist, For the bulk of my caseload is direct select. The bulk of my caseload, we have, we might need a key guard. And I do love how, okay, I'm vain. I don't love how good key guards attach nowadays because I don't want to break a nail, but I do love that they're more like secure. And so it takes a little bit more effort because I have had plenty back in the day where they just popped off and I accidentally sat on them at a patient's house and snapped their key guard. And I'm not that big of a human, but like that, will put a dent in a girl's ego real quick. But I was reassured by our sweet friend Wyatt. He goes, Michelle, I can't tell you how many I've stepped on. I was like, okay, great. But so I love that the key guards attach more, but I have wondered, and this is something that I've never asked. So I'm asking you, like, what if a little one has a key guard and maybe they're starting out on a 20 icon page, but they have like a big language growth and they go up to like needing 48 icons on a page, but they still need a key guard for access. Is that something that like you can submit to insurance later, or are they just like nominally priced so we don't have to fret over the cost?
So you can submit later, but also we have a solution called the progressive key guard. So most cases I don't use those. It's just because of the fact of like we're thinking of motor planning and we're thinking of the long term, as you mentioned earlier with a throwback to what Dr. Page was talking to you about. Thinking really really long term. So but there are scenarios where we have motor skills, fine motor skills, as well as language that are kind of in concert, in stepping up. It's like, so sometimes it makes sense to graduate up to different grid sizes for sure. But again, all of this stuff is super holistic. So if anybody's listening to me, it's like, no, that's motor planning all the way, and we should never change the grid size. But there are situations we have
We're
to be
gonna
holistic. We have to
grow.
be right, yeah. We have to think about these individual scenarios. Anyway, so we have the progressive key guard system for that purpose. So it's like pick any app so that has multiple grid sizes. So you can do up to 5 different sizes. So let's say you're looking at 24 or whatever grid size. Like this is really working right now, and then we're step 20, 24, 25. So then you step up to like I'm going to do 25 and then 36 and then 42. Whatever those steps are. So you can go ahead and do that from the get go, and that's what I would suggest doing if you think that that is the scenario. Like those skills are going to be stepping up together, maybe not perfectly aligned, but still you're going to have those skills improve. I would do that, so then you can do that. But if there's a change and we need to rewrite and try to attempt to get more key guards, absolutely you can try to do that. But just it's tougher when I can't guarantee that that will get approved. But typically that wouldn't be an issue because the justification rationalization is very clear and very appropriate. So yeah, that typically wouldn't make sense, but it's always a good idea to plan ahead. So when you're doing this funding evaluation, it's like we know that we're going to need those. Let's go ahead and get those, and we have a solution for that specifically. And this is so all of the different companies have slightly different key guards. So I'll just kind of show you how ours work. So we have these snap lock key guards, so it just goes on the corner, and it's pretty easy to take off. But so if you're taking off and you don't know how to take it off, it's actually very difficult because it actually, when you
Me.
pull on it, yeah, when you pull on it, actually digs into the back of the device. I like to think of it as like one of those finger traps, right? So it's like the harder you try to get it off, the harder it gets. So it's like you're kind of making it more difficult on yourself if you keep pulling on it, which is great for clients that you're concerned about ripping those off. So that's good. But if you turn the device around, so I'll kind of show you like so on the back side, and then you just put your fingers on the edge of it and then kick it off with your thumbs, it comes off very easily. So it's like if you know how to do it, it's very easy. But if you don't, it's difficult, which is kind of by design. But anyway, so a lot of different companies have different ways of doing that. So that's just the way that we do ours.
Well, I know we only have like 5 to 7 minutes left, but I did want to touch base with because Forbes is new to me. So and I'm using the correct words here, what software or language app does Forbes have that I would be able to, like, if I needed to request a trial, like, that we could, like, try out?
Yeah, yeah, and that's a good question. I'll use the ProSelect 13 just because of the large screens that you can see it better. So this is what it comes with as far as a loaner device. So our trial devices, our loan device, have all of these different applications. And for the podcast listeners not that cannot see that, I'll kind of list off a little. So the major ones like Touch Chat. It has on there Proloquo to go. We're able to do Proloquo, which is a different one than Proloquo to go. Lampert's for Life, of course. Proloquo for text, predictable, grid for iPad, speak for yourself, dialogue, and we own the AAC app, Cough Drop. So that is our proprietary one. So we have that one as well. So and then beyond that too, it's basically almost anything that comes on iOS. We don't currently support TD Snap. We're not able to put those on our devices, but absolutely anything else out there that is on iOS, we can do that. So it's nice to have that flexibility, and then also to have all of those different apps on the trial, those loan devices. That we have a loan library that you can choose as a SLP just to have for your clinic. You can request one of those, but you also can have one for an end user. And we have two slightly different processes. And so for that end user one, that can go directly home with that end user. So I like to think of it as like if I had a clinic and I was running my own clinic, then I would have that clinic owner there. I'd try and get out with, let's say, 4 or 5 different clients that may be appropriate. It's like, okay, I really see some positive things over here with this individual client, but I want to really try some things out at home and have them really integrating it into their world, right? And you mentioned that earlier, getting the buy-in from the family. It's like, okay, now I'm going to do the end
Huge.
user process and sending that home with them so they can really start figuring things out. And then after that, I can go through the funding process and all that stuff too. But we have a really great lending library, which is so important because they need to be able to try this stuff out to see if it's going to be a good fit for them or not, of
Yes.
course.
Also, as a therapist, I want to be able to curl up on a couch and, like, let me be honest, like, as I'm clearly sitting here in, like, business from the waist up, but in my leggings, like, I want to be able to curl up and with may or may not be a glass of wine at the end of the day and explore the device,
Sure.
like, on my own, because I want to check out I'm not sure if you heard Waffles in the background say, "Look, we have
Yeah,
button
that,
we have the buttons on the door," and so she's trying to tell me, "Look, because daddy is outside." My husband just got home, and so,
oh, nice.
she's like, "Look." So if she starts pushing the daddy button, that's for Waffles to call my
What was
husband.
the,
So
is that Stella? Was it Stella, the dog that had all of the different buttons? You know what
I
I'm talking
don't
about?
I don't know if it
I
was
think it was
that
Stella.
I don't I just know I
Maybe,
saw it,
maybe wrong.
I was like, "Waffles is smart, we can do that," and of course, the boys just wanted to program, like, poop on there, and I'm like, "No, thank you," but we have my favorite is when she goes, "Look," and then puttykins, because we call the cats puttykins for plural, and I'm like, "You are not chasing the cats." The cats. But, okay, but you said something that's key. We can, as a therapist, reach out to our local Forbes reps and get a trial device for us to have for, like, clinic use, or like home health use if you're in the home health world, and also explore on our own downtime to practice and build confidence so that we can model and try it in sessions.
Absolutely, because it's such a hard thing to learn it in a 30 to 60-minute session,
Yes,
and you have the client there and maybe the family there. It's like, yeah, you're not going to learn it if that's the only time that you're actually utilizing it. That's so hard.
correct.
So, yeah, and then you can gain some confidence too and feel comfortable when you go into the
Yes,
session that like these are the things I'm going to try to target today. I know exactly where they are. I don't have to be
yes,
fumbling through or maybe not even finding it. But yeah, so that's a really good use of it. So using it with clients, but then you're taking it home and getting really familiar with different applications and things like that. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Okay, so then in our final few minutes, I have the scary question. Um, uh, what happens if, as the therapist, you do it all? We crush this. We pull it all together. We do our data. We get the reports, and then insurance says no. And I will be honest, I am terrified with the changes that have happened this summer and the changes from earlier this month with the Department of Special Ed. I do worry about our little ones and not so little ones that need AAC. What if Medicaid says we're not paying for this? What are my options?
Yeah, and that can be a scary place to be because you're like, where am I going to go? And
Yes.
I feel so great that we have an option that's beyond that. But we have a 501c3 that is separate from our company, but it's our partner. So it's called Voice of Grace. And so you put in a grant application directly to them, and it's a really simple process. So you go through that, and then we donate devices directly to the individual. So, so it's a really nice option to have in your back pocket. And to kind of give you an idea, so the amount of grants, like I've been with Forbes for a little over a year. So the amount of grants that I've been a part of is like, okay, we got a denial for whatever reason. We appealed, final denial, we can't go anywhere. So we sent those grants in, those applications to Voice of Grace, and 100% of them have been funded since I've been a part of this. So it's not like a very selective thing where you may or may not get it. Of course, I can't guarantee each one of these, but that has been the success rate is 100% have gotten a device from us to kind of meet those needs. So it's really you like kind of like the access method thing I was talking about earlier. We always have a place to go. So even if it's a partner assisted scanning, and then we're kind of thinking long term. So same thing with funding. I feel really good about the fact that we can go through this process. We're going to be there. If you have a denial, I will help, with the appeal process. We have a funding team that helps with all that stuff too. We will help fight alongside you, of course. But at some point, like you're going to get a final denial in certain scenarios, and there's nowhere else to go. But I feel really good. It's like no, there is a place to go, and you can work with Voice of Grace and get one donated directly to that end user, so you still have something. So there's always an option, which is really, really great on my end. So I know that we'll be able to provide something regardless of what.
Folks, I just need to read this mission statement to you from the Voice of Grace. It says the Voice of Grace charity program is fully inclusive and available to families regardless of belief, ethnicity, gender, or social group. It is a testament to commitment to answering a call and mission to share the love of Christ by providing communication devices and advocating for those in need. Oh my God, make my eyes crack and tear up a bit there at the end, but like, Stephen, this is phenomenal.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's such a great thing to be a part of. I feel very fortunate to be a part of that and have that option. So I feel so great about that, and it's come into place so often this past year. And like, and typically the SLP and the parents are like, oh no, like what is going to happen? It's like, hey, we could do this instead, and then boom, within a few weeks they have their device, and so they went from oh no, this is a dead end, and I'm not sure where to go to hey, we have exactly what we need for our individual, and we can move forward. So it's such a fantastic organization and fantastic thing that I get to be a part of. So it's great for sure.
Okay, so at the end of the episodes, I always ask if somebody can do like a donation or make a donation in honor of or something like this. Do you know how folks can support the Voice of Grace?
Yes, you can absolutely donate directly to Voice of Grace. So go to their website, voiceofgrace.net, and then there's a donate button. So if you believe in that cause, you're called to do that, then absolutely we would be happy to receive those funds. So then we can turn around and continue to provide AAC devices to people that really don't have a direction to go after that, for sure.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, this is so Waffles clearly needs to go outside. Could you hear that?
Yeah, I did. I did it. I would like to go
Okay.
outside. Waffles is communicating very clearly.
Yes. Also, she's giving me the death stare. Yes, ma'am. Mommy's coming. Do you need to get dressed? get dressed is what we say when we put our leash on. Well, on that note, folks, apparently today's episode has concluded because Waffles has to go potty. But also very fitting that she communicated that at the end. So
Yeah,
yeah.
she's using AAC, right?
We believe in this. We live this as a pack.
you're you're
Uh,
integrating it in every aspect of your life.
well, Stephen, thank you. Thank you so much. If somebody listening has a question and they want to reach out, how can they reach you?
Send me an email would be the best way. So Stephen K at ForbesAAC.com.
All right. Stephen K at ForbesAAC.com. And wait, it's STEPHEN.
It is
So
PH, yeah. That is a good thing to say. Yeah, yeah, it's definitely PH. And then also you can just go on the website, and then there's a place where you can go to see all of the different ATSs. So that is the position that I have. So we have people across the country. So then you can go to whatever state it is, and then click on that state, and then you can be connected with whomever is there that is there to support you, and you can reach out to them directly as well.
beautiful. Well, Stephen, thank you so much, hon.